The Spurs losing streak continues. Is this rock bottom?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey guys, this is Jason David Frank, the Green Ranger, and you are listening to a Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia. It's morphin' time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome back to the Locked On Spurs show right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for KENS 5 San Antonio. Glad to have you back. Hey, the Spurs are still off. Got another day off before they take on the Rockets. Maybe the losing streak will end. We'll see. At this point, I think nobody's counting their chickens that will happen. What are we talking about today? Well, we're talking about, is this rock bottom for the Spurs? The Spurs are on an 11-game losing streak. Their plus minus is through the roof and or I say through the basement, I should say. It's just so bad. Is this worse, or is there more worse stuff to come? And we'd be looking also at, is it just a matter of injuries? If that's all it is, well, we're going to discuss that and more with my good friend, Michael Jimenez of San Antonio Sports Star. Michael, welcome back. Hopefully you don't say anything controversial again. You know, from your TCU take to your Lonnie Walker take to your DeJounte Murray, whatever's next. Well, you know, maybe you should save that for halftime with Jimenez. But welcome back, buddy.
Dude, I'm glad to be back. And first and foremost, we did it, baby. We did it. Team Tank did it.
Rejoice.
Spurs have the worst record in the Western Conference right now. If the season ended right now, the Spurs would have the best odds, tied for the best odds, to get either Wemby or Scoot. Team Tank, baby, we did it.
Yeah, it's definitely shaping out that way. Although everybody knows they're going to throw this at you, Jimenez. It's only 14%, Jimenez. It's only a 14% shot. I will take that 14% anytime, any day, if it means the Spurs can. Can you imagine Wemby or Scoot in the Spurs uniform? That'd be nice.
Oh, it would be amazing. This is going to be one incredible draft coming up. So really, there's probably about 8 to 10 studs in there anyway. So we don't need to get one or two to get an all-star. There's some pretty good talent in there. It's going to be a great draft. I'm looking forward to it. But really, it starts by getting the ping pong ball combinations, man. That's where it all starts and ends right now. And the Spurs right now are one game away from having the worst record overall in the NBA.
Wow. Well, hopefully the next game the Rockets can do the Spurs a favor. I don't know if that will happen, though. I don't know. I think this Spurs team is, you can tell on their face already that it's getting to them, from Vassell to Jones to Keldon. Who knows? Maybe Pop is really getting frustrated with this. He hasn't coached in a couple of games. We shall see what's going to happen this week against the Rockets. But everybody, make sure to follow Jimenez on Twitter at MikeESPNSA. Check out his show, Halftime with Michael Jimenez, on the San Antonio Sports Star. He's going to tell you everything about that and more later on the show. So Jimenez, the Spurs, as mentioned, they are on an 11 streak. It seems there's no end to this. They're just getting rocked. It's not even their end games. Their last game against the Suns, 133-95. That's how bad it was. They just got destroyed. Currently 6-18 on the season. Jimenez, is this rock bottom for the Spurs, or should you go ahead and prepare Spurs fans? The worst is yet to come.
Well, I think we're about one step away from officially hitting rock bottom. I mean, keep in mind the Spurs have 2 games with the Rockets and 1 game against Orlando between now and Christmas, right? So if we lose 2 of the 3 of those games, then we have officially hit rock bottom. But it's one of those things. It was so bizarre watching the Suns game because, you know, I'm looking at the stats and I'm trying to figure it out, because at one point we were about, there was about 8 minutes to go in the second quarter, and the Spurs were shooting 61%, and we're down by 11. And I was looking at the stats going, how is that?
Like, how is that possible? Yeah.
Possible. But it was true. It was just one of those things where, I mean, the Spurs were outmatched. There's so many players not playing for the team right now. There's no chance in the world that they're going to be winning games against any good teams at the moment, especially if they're going out there shorthanded. It's tough enough as it is. But the Spurs, chipping the paint off the rim right now from three, man. It's been
That's what,
awful.
yeah.
And Keldon Johnson, why are you ball hogging so much? Why are you shooting 23, 24 shots a game? I don't get it. He had a decent game.
I think they're force feeding him to snap out of his slump. I think that's what it is. I think they're just here, go. I mean, Coach Brown talked about it after the Suns lost, saying that they just wanted him to go back to playing bully ball, that's usually his bread and butter is. And he went back to that against Phoenix. What's that?
There's no growth in that. If he's out there playing bully ball and not actually having a real game, there's no growth in that.
But they got to jumpstart him somehow, though. I mean, if that's what it takes, then go for it. I mean, what do you got to lose this season?
Jumpstart him by going back to bad habits? I mean, I don't understand that. We were talking about this on San Antonio Sports Star. Rudy J and I argue about this all the time. And Rudy one time was bold enough to say that Keldon has no offensive game other than bully ball and shooting a three. And that's the thing I was hoping that he would develop over, this season was a more finesse game. Finesse is not a bad word. It's just mid-range game, add a little bit something to the repertoire, a little bit something to the tool belt. But if they're going to be just having him shoot threes and bully ball, then there's absolutely no growth in him this season, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, you look at that game versus the Suns. He was not the worst Spur. He finished the game with 27 points, 11 for 23. You mentioned those 23 shots. So for his standards of late, keep that in mind, of late, because he's been in a massive slump. That's been his best game in a while. Yeah, been his best game. He's a minus 24. But you look up and down that plus minus category, everybody stunk. There was not one Spur in the positive side. The worst was Devin Vassell with a minus 33. He had a bad night, but it's okay because at least during this losing streak, he's been the one guy that's been trying to get some W's. He went 5 for 12 versus the Suns. But I think rock bottom is yet to come because let's just say they're on the precipice of rock bottom. Like they are just 1 foot away from it. I think what will rock bottom be? They'll recognize it, they'll hit it, and they say, okay, it's time to go shopping. Who wants Pirtle, Johnson, and McDermott? I think that'll do that, and then that's pretty much going to be rock bottom for them when they officially pull the plug on the season. Jimenez, your thoughts?
Now, did you say Johnson or did you mean Josh Richardson?
I mean Richardson. Sorry, excuse me. My mistake. Yeah,
okay.
Josh Richardson.
Really
My mistake. My mistake.
I was like, really? Yeah. You're accusing me of making hot takes, but then, and I got a little bit.
Sorry, yeah, I meant Richardson. My mistake. But yeah, I think I think it's coming soon because Pirtle's been away for a while now. Richardson's definitely been shelved. I mean, they say a sprain, and we usually have Dr. Ryan McCorkle on. And he says those take a while, but they shouldn't be lasting this long. For all we know, they could be preserving them because they got something on the horizon. But
the trade deadline is February 9th.
Mm-hmm.
So let's not make it like it's far away. It's essentially just over 2 months away. So the Spurs did this last season with Thad Young. I mean, they benched him and keep him healthy. Just somebody will want him, and the Spurs right now have to do something, right? And to do something it's to grow through the draft because they're not going to grow through the majority of the players that are on the court right now. I mean, I had this debate earlier today with some of the people from San Antonio Sports Star, and I was like, really, there's only one player on the Spurs roster right now that I am like would be upset if he got traded, and that's Devin Vassell.
Right.
Everybody else, Keldon included, I wouldn't care. Wouldn't care at all. Mm-hmm. If it improves the team, if it gives the team the ability to grow through the draft or be better, I like Keldon. I think Keldon has potential, and Keldon could be a special player. So that would give me a double take, but I'd get over it pretty quickly. Devin Vassell's the only guy on the team that I want to have that I think has solidified himself at the number 2 spot. Trey Jones, replaceable. Jakob Pirtle,
replaceable.
He's a good player. I think.
Yeah.
He's a tier 2
He'd
center.
probably be the number 2 on the list of players to see go they'll leave you a little stung, like, ouch, that hurt.
Yeah, most definitely. Stohan at 4, not sold. Just The Spurs, sometimes you gotta just basically just start from ground zero. And
Yeah.
I don't think Spurs fans realize how deep of a rebuild this was going to be. It wasn't going to be like we're just going to add a few pieces. It's like,
Yeah.
no, we're actually going to the whiteboard, getting the eraser out, and erasing
Yeah.
basically everything from there, except for a couple of pieces. Right now I'm taking a look at the standings, and it's really pissing me off when it comes to the Charlotte Hornets because, the DeJounte trade was going to be 3 first-round draft picks, and it was sold to us. It's never going to happen, dude. It was 2 first-rounders and the possibility of a third, and that one is so heavily protected this year and next year. We're not going to get it this year because Charlotte's awful and they lost players in the off season. And then next year, why would they make the playoffs and lose their first round draft pick? We're never going to get
that'd
it.
be them. Yeah, exactly.
It'll never get conveyed. But hey, we got 3 in 2025. There you go.
Jimenez.
We got some swaps. We got 2 in 2027.
And young players that'll be a good piece for a team that's on the precipice or in the postseason hunt. I think as well. I mean, you can add. What's that?
Well, think about this. I mean, maybe this is such a deep draft that I don't know how easy it's going to be to get that first rounder because, if this is a as good of a draft as advertised, if this is the best draft since the LeBron draft 20 years ago, then a team that would normally be willing to give up a 17 or a 20 pick might not be as willing this year because this year at 17 or 20, you might be getting somebody that would normally go 9 or 10.
Yeah.
And because of that, it might be more difficult. But if the Spurs can get that second draft pick for this year, whether it be trading Jakob or trading somebody who has a legit shot of, they're just one player away from making a finals run. If you can get that one and then sweeten the pot, because what happens if the Spurs don't get the number 1 or number 2 pick, and we're at number 4, maybe we can move up 1 or 2 spots by giving up.
Well, maybe that's rock bottom, Jimenez. The Spurs don't win the lottery and they fall out of the top 3. Maybe that will be rock bottom for the season. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. And once again, we're joined by Michael Jimenez of San Antonio Sports Star. Follow him on Twitter at MikeESPNSA. Hey, I want to talk to you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is a daily fantasy app that you have to get right now. So how does it work? You pick 2 to 6 players. If they go on to score more or less in their Prize Pick projection, you're going up to 25 times your money on any entry. You're not competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. You can pretty much pick any sport out there with Prize Picks. NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, Euro, basketball, cricket, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less, and it's that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals, currently operational in 30 states and in Canada. Download the Prize Picks app right now. Go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users are going to get themselves a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. You deposit 100, Prize Picks gives you 100. You deposit 50, Prize Picks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On and sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. We're back with Michael Jimenez right here on Locked On Spurs, discussing your silver and black and just how bad things are looking right now for them as the season is well underway now. Jimenez, I look at the situation the Spurs are in. It's rock bottom. We eventually got the Rockets coming up next. When do you see this streak ending? Will it be against the Rockets, who are supposedly as bad as the Spurs, but could have fooled me with their roster? I think they can play well above what they're playing right now. Is it against the Rockets? Do you see this? Like, just how long do you think this is going to go on?
Yeah, if the Spurs are actually going to play their players and not hold them back for injury or whatever the case may be, then one of the Rockets games would be a victory. But if the Spurs are out there, withholding Fertile, withholding Sohan and all that stuff, this might drift into the Orlando game right before Christmas. And if that doesn't happen, we may have seen the last victory of the year, which is crazy because this is a team that started 5-2. And
Well, let's take a look. Well, you want to go down the calendar real fast, and you tell me L. Just tell me L or W. So up next is the Rockets, L or W.
as of right now, it's an L.
Okay. Okay. Well, in San Antonio, that doesn't matter. You'll be in Houston, San Antonio. That doesn't matter. Okay.
Yeah, first place.
Then they go to Mexico City. They take on the Heat. L or W.
L.
Okay. Then they'll next face the Cavaliers. L or W.
That's a 30-point L.
Oof. We'll give you two more. Blazers after the Cavs in San Antonio.
That's an interesting one because the Blazers started off super hot to start the year.
Yeah, they cooled off a lot,
and they've cooled off and are now basically a 500 team. If there was one to steal, it probably would be that one.
Okay, so you're projecting perhaps December 14th is when the losing streak will end. I think it's going to end the next game versus the Rockets, but
Hey, Rockets are 4-6 last 10 games.
I know, but
that's 4 more wins than the Spurs in the last 10.
I think it ends. I think it ends the next game. Oh man, just look at that Rockets roster. How are they projected to be so bad? They have a pretty nice roster, but
yeah.
If anything, I don't see them getting destroyed as they did against the Suns. I see maybe they lose by 15 or 10 in that game versus the Rockets, but I'm crossing fingers it ends against the Rockets because you're starting to see it take its toll. This losing streak on the players. Devin Vassell, I don't know if you saw the video, Jimenez. The last time he spoke after a loss, he was very kind of grabbing his arm, scratching it, shaking his neck back and forth, doing his best to put on a smile. And then when he was bluntly asked, "Is this getting to you?" he said, "Yes, it is." So are you afraid that their spirit might be broken or maybe is broken already?
Oh, it's already broken. I mean, most definitely. And I'm not necessarily happy about that in the sense that I want them to be feeling that or in that way. You know, when I say that I'm Team Tank and whatnot, it's because I care about the Spurs organization and the Spurs future. And sometimes, you know, to make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs. And when it comes to some of these players, though, I'm sure they know what's going on. You know, the players don't tank, organizations do. And the Spurs are tanking. I mean, they're making it completely obvious. Right. But the spirit's being broken. It's funny because, well, I shouldn't say funny, but it's just interesting because you see Devin Vassell out there and you see how mentally strong he is. Even though you can tell he has some frustration from time to time, more often than not, he kind of holds it within, you know, and comes out fighting the next day. Keldon, you know, wears his emotions on his sleeve half the time. And that's a good and a bad thing, but you can kind of see that it's starting to chip away at him. And what I'm afraid of is that this might have forced him to regress because they're relying too heavily on a skill set that may not necessarily be there. That's the same reason why I didn't want Jeremy Sohan shooting so many three-pointers. And people are like, they'll just get better at it. No, that's not necessarily how it works. You either have the skill set or you don't. And doing it on the job as a rookie was not the right thing to do. Keldon Johnson does not have what it takes to be the number one player on a team. Just does.
Yeah.
And that's not a slight against him because he'd be a hell of a number 3. You know, so and Devin Vassell would be a hell of a number 2.
Yeah, I'm not going to totally bash Keldon, and I know shooting-wise, it's been bad. I mean, albeit maybe for the Suns game. But if you look at up and down his box score log, he's helping in other ways. Very minimal turnovers. You know, he's definitely rebounding. He's assisting. He's doing other stuff. So it's not a complete bad crap show from him. It's just the ball's not falling down. And, you know, as you mentioned earlier, you know, as I mentioned earlier, you know, he's reverting back to the bully ball. And I think, fine, whatever you got to do to jumpstart yourself. You're thinking, no, that's just a sign of his limited offensive game. So, yeah, he's definitely in an odd spot right now because if he defaults to the bully ball, then he gets the criticism. And if he tries to expand his game, he's missing, he's misfiring, then he gets criticized for that. So,
Right.
but I think if you look at overall in the slump, he's been helping in other ways. But as far as when will it end, I mean, I'm being optimistic about that Houston game. I'm being optimistic because, I mean, look what Devin Booker did to the Spurs. Imagine what those guards in Houston might do to San Antonio.
Yeah, and I'll be watching that Rockets game, looking at Alperen Şengün play, thinking to myself, hey,
that was the guy that you wanted.
I wanted him instead of Primo.
Yeah.
I was all about Şengün. And it's funny because there's certain players every year that I fall in love with. A couple of years ago, I fell in love with, or a few years ago, rather, I fell in love with Devin Vassell. I watched a lot of Florida State. And then I was watching a lot of international ball, falling in love with Şengün. And right now, for the Rockets, he's averaging 15 points, 8.5 rebounds per game, a couple of assists, shooting 56% from the field. Right now, my guy for college is Gigi Jackson out of South Carolina. I fall in love with a player, and I hope and pray that the Spurs sign them or get them somehow. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. I know last year I really wasn't high on Sohan. I'm hoping that he pans out. I'm still trying to figure out how his skill set works in the year 2022, 2023. I'm hopeful, but it's just one of those things where, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and obviously Brian Wright has a certain thing about it. But what's so funny is that when I see Gigi Jackson, the exact same reason why he drafted Primo is the same reason why you would draft Jackson. Primo was the youngest player drafted when he was drafted last year, or a couple years ago. Jackson right now is 17 years old as a freshman right now playing for South Carolina. It's the exact same thing. It's like you grab them early while they're young.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see when this end. How does it end? Could it be something as simple as, well, Rockets announced that it's pretty much going to be a load management day for everybody, and their G League steps in, something like that. Could it be? So we just don't know, but I'm optimistic. I'm thinking next game versus the Rockets, and I believe, what did you say? You said Blazers at home on December 14th, right? So you think that's where
I think that the Spurs have 4 opportunities between now and Christmas. Okay, they've got both games against the Rockets, one against the Magic, and then the Trailblazers are reeling right now. So the Spurs are going to get, I will guess, out of those 4 games, the Spurs will get 2 of them. Okay, so
of the remaining December games.
Well, not of the remaining December games.
Okay.
Of those 4 games that are coming up.
Okay.
There's other games in there where the Spurs are going to lose, just simply because they're outgunned and outmatched. But I think they have the opportunity to win a couple of games between now and Christmas. All
right. When we get back, we're going to ask Jimenez if he's willing to be a little lenient on the Spurs during this losing skid, and if the injury excuse is enough for Jimenez to say, you know what, yeah, that is a big factor on why they have lost 11 straight games. Once again, we're with Michael Jimenez with San Antonio Sports Star. We're back with Michael Jimenez. He is with San Antonio Sports Star. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at MikeESPNSA. Do it right now. So Jimenez, we've been talking about it, that this team is just injury hit, from Pirtle to Sohan to Richardson, McDermott. The list goes on and on. Romeo Langford got hurt in the game versus the Suns. Shocker there. That's been the story of his career pretty much. Zach Collins is coming back from his injury. So this team has been rattled by the injury bug. Are you willing to give them a pass because of the situation and why they're in an 11-game losing streak as we speak?
I'm skeptical as to whether or not these injuries are real. Is it wrong for me to say that?
No, I don't think it's wrong for you to say that.
About it all, because, I remember back in the day with Tim Duncan, they put down old as a reason why he couldn't play. But we hear things like contusion, and it's not something that is like a sprain or something that's hyperextended or something that's broken. It's like contusion, calf soreness. That was one that came up last week. Calf soreness. That was Sohan, and I'm just there going, what is this? It just seems a little bit bizarre. And so I find it to be a little bit suspicious. Now, one thing that I don't find to be odd is whenever they say that there's an illness, because I know even the Dallas Cowboys are struggling with the flu and potentially COVID or whatnot going on within
Right.
the locker room. But when it comes to the injuries, I mean, if they're going to be tossing out there 9 or 10 players, they're not going to be winning. If they're going to be missing 2 or 3 starters, they're not going to be winning. It's tough enough when they're at full strength to win games, much less when they are bringing players in and signing them off the street and bringing them in and actually playing them 15 minutes. It's a very, very bizarre season. It's a long season. And, we're going to know we know what's going on. We know what's going on. But
We
the
know,
injuries
yeah.
but I hope that none of these injuries are like bad. I hope that none of them are going to actually prevent them from playing for weeks or months at a time. It's just weird because whenever we hear these injuries, at least I don't hear a follow-up as in, hey, we expect this player to be back in X number of days. It's always like some sort of lingering thing going on, which I find odd.
Yeah. I'm willing to give them a pass. I think you lose arguably maybe your second, third best player with Pirtle. That's a big, big factor. Defensively, you lose that rebounding, those offensive rebounds, second chances. Also spacing. There's a big body out there to free up a Keldon Johnson for wide open threes or whatnot. Same thing for Vassell, helps him. I think that's a big missing piece right now. Different lineups in and out. Somebody gets hurt mid-game, as we saw with McDermott and Romeo Langford. Yeah, it's just I give them a benefit of doubt in that aspect, but I don't at the same time as when they just roll over and die. I mean, Fitness comes out and pops them in the mouth, and okay, the game's over. It's like their spirit, it just gets crushed. And I would like to see a little bit more competitiveness out of them. I remember the days earlier this season, Jimenez, the competitive Spurs, how we were cheering for moral victories. Remember that? That's long gone, Jimenez.
I mean, the Spurs last week were up in a game by 20 points and, had a season high in points in the first half. And you're like, man, where did this team come from?
Yeah.
Scoring, 77 points in the first half. And then all of a sudden they have a season low in the second half. And it was the most bizarre game, Jekyll and Hyde game of all time. Yeah. And that's just the way the Spurs are right now because it's fun. It's strange how there's some games where the passing is so crisp and they're getting a ton of assists. And there's other games where it looks like it's a pickup game and they've never seen each other before on the court. You don't know what you're going to get with this team. And it is disheartening for a lot of those players because a lot of those players are young. Keep in mind, I mean, even as young as they are, whether it be Keldon or Vassell or whatnot, they've never experienced losing in their entire lives, at least to this degree, because they were super studs in middle school. They were on winning teams in high school, winning teams in college, or winning teams overseas. Yeah. And then they come to San Antonio and then just get hit in the face with a shovel. And it's just, it's got to be disheartening for a lot of these players. And you got to understand whether or not they understand the whole process and that this is a process. But you knew they telegraphed that this was what it was going to be. Pop said this was the way that it was going to be. They got rid of DeJounte and it just kind of is what it is. But right now, I would just put Devin Vassell in bubble wrap and just, have them ready to go later.
I would put Jakob and McDermott and Richardson in bubble wrap right now, just to get something value of them as the trade deadline gets closer and closer. But hey, we're done talking. We want to hear from you. What do you think about the Spurs' current losing streak now at 11? Is this rock bottom for this team, or is rock bottom yet to come? Also, what do you think about the Spurs' injury situation? Is that a huge factor why they're losing 11 games straight right now, or is it something bigger that we just didn't touch on? You can make sure to let me know your thoughts on Twitter at Jeff G Spurs Zone and Jimenez at Mike ESPN SA. Also with his own show at the San Antonio Sports Star, Halftime with Michael Jimenez. What's going on with your show, Jimenez?
Well, we're coming down to the end of the year, I just realized I'm going to be off the air for 2 weeks at the end of the month.
What?
Man.
Wow.
Yes. So I'm actually taking vacation at the end of the month because my wife and I are going to Jamaica. We were supposed to celebrate our anniversary, our 10-year anniversary, and it got postponed. So we're taking our vacation 10 months later. So we're doing it this month. Then we have Christmas. Then we have all the bowl games and whatnot. So so really, there's only 2 weeks of halftime this month. It's going to be this upcoming week and then the following week, and then I'm gone for a couple. But there's a lot of big changes happening, man. A lot of things, announcements to be made.
Nice.
A lot of things that are going on, and I'm super excited about the direction of the station. Super excited about the direction of the show.
Awesome.
And I can't wait for when everything gets, ironed out, and we know everything for sure before we start making announcements and whatnot. But there's a lot of good things going on.
Good stuff. Again, keep up with Jimenez on Twitter at Mike ESPNSA because everybody loves following Jimenez. They can't wait to read what his next tweet is going to be about, so he can rile up the fan base or TCU fans out there. What's next on your agenda? What fan base are you going to target next, Jimenez?
Oh yeah, I pissed off TCU fan over the weekend, didn't I?
Yes, you did, big time.
And it's strange because you tend to retweet me, and people are coming out there going, he tries to do this on purpose. He tries to piss people off, and it's so funny because I'm just stating what I truly believe, and people get pissed and they think that I'm like doing this on purpose to kind of rile people up. No, it's my job to have an opinion, and sometimes it's not my fault that you get pissed off. It's your fault that you get pissed off. But the great thing is, those who get mad about my take, oftentimes are the ones who listen to the show every day. Thank them for it.
Well, it's like, did you ever see the movie Private Parts about Howard Stern? Do you remember when they went over the numbers with the station management, and he was getting the most numbers, and yet the manager was like, "Why is he getting the numbers? He sucks." And they go, the common reason is because people want to know what's he going to say next. So maybe there's a blueprint right there for you, Jimenez.
Yeah, and for the month of November, I was the most read and most clicked on
way to go, Jimenez.
The Sports Star for our content. Me and Ryan Eagle go at each other, man. Yeah. I get the most clicks one month, and then Ryan Eagle gets the most clicks, and we go back and forth. And I have bragging rights because I've been told that I've won the month of November. So nice.
Well, again, follow Jimenez on Twitter at MikeESPNSA to help him beat out his competition at the Star, and click on his links whenever he does drop a new article from the Spurs to the Cowboys to whatever he has cooking. He'll share it on his Twitter page. And subscribe to Locked On Spurs wherever you get your favorite podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes. The list goes on and on. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. Biggest stories, biggest recaps, instant reactions, game recaps, take of the day. It's all there. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, wherever you get podcasts, just like Locked On Spurs. Odyssey app, YouTube, the Kens 5+ app, and everywhere else. So for Michael Jimenez, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.